Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop role-playing game news, podcast, game design, industry stuff podcast. I'm Shawn Merwin, here with the hot air ballooning Teos Abadia. How's it going, Teos?
It's going great, Shawn. We're going to talk about Wild Beyond the Witchlight today. I'm excited. It's a great adventure, a lot of fun, easy to be positive about this one. Yeah. Had a nice weekend. It was an interesting blend of getting stuff done. I made a monster for a villain, if you will, for Draw Steel that I'm very excited about to see whether it survives the internal development and if so, how people play test with it, because it was pretty neat.
Was it from Chapter 4?
It is.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'll send it your way so you can take a look at it. It's pretty fun. So cool. Partly because I'm getting off topic already, but D&D monsters tend to be pretty safe, though. We're going to talk about the Jabberwocky or Jabberwock. Yeah. They tend to be kind of safe. And I'm still wrapping my brain around how wild Draw Steel monsters are, where they're like, oh, I disgorge, 5 to 12 minions and I, disgorge them onto you. So you take damage from that. And then I alter the entire location to now be in a pool of fire. And I, just... name it, whatever you imagine, whatever bizarre cartoon anime you've seen, like a Draw Steel monster might do that, right? And and so to think that way, not just go like, oh, it attacks everybody around them and then it teleports, but that it's really over the top is something I'm trying to re-educate my brain to do.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. I am back from Renton, Washington, the Seattle suburb where Wizards of the Coast headquarters are. And yeah, it was a great, if exhausting week. I was there. I got there Monday, left Friday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, an enormous amount of meetings with a bunch of really, really dedicated, fun, creative, smart people. When Jeremy left and Chris retired, everyone was like, oh, Wizards is over, it's all done, oh, what. And I was angry on behalf of the people that were still there, knowing that there was still a great team there. It was reduced, no doubt, but there was still a great team there. And some of them I knew by name only. So to get a chance to put not just a face to the name, but a personality to the name and a dedication to the name was astounding to me. So very excited about that and all of the wonderful things that we fans of D&D have coming in the next, not just 6 months, not just next year, but for the foreseeable future.
That's awesome. I'm jealous, even though I've been, it's been announced that I'm on the advisory council. So there was a visit for that, and I did get to meet a lot of folks, but a lot of those new hires weren't there. And we saw people sort of a little bit at a time, but to sit in on the actual design meetings, that's amazing. So I'm jealous of that. It's great. I got a little bit of that when I visited Draw Steel, and we were like just sitting there, and it felt like I was in a writer's room in Hollywood, right? And that getting to see, like you said, not just see the designer, like, oh, that's what they look like, 360 kind of thing, but and to break bread with them, but to scheme with them, right? To really just dream about what's possible and hear their wild ideas and go, oh, okay, that's why you're great. Like, yep,
yeah. And speaking of Draw Steel, I got to meet Willie Abeal as well.
Oh yeah, fantastic!
Great. So that was a pleasure and a treat to sit and have a meal with Willie.
Willie's fantastic. Yeah.
Great. So good times all around.
Lovely.
And you were not just like designing and doing things. You were on a podcast as well.
I was. It's now out. You can catch this when I recorded last week on Tabletop Journeys. Fantastic. Josh, Lewanika, they're great hosts, super fun topics. We talked about a lot of different things. So you can find that on the YouTubes and on podcasts. And you were not quiet. As you said last episode, you were on the D&D Lorecast and Crit Hit the Giant. We've got links to those in our show notes. And you're not done.
Yeah, apparently I'm going to be on D20 Play. We're going to record that tomorrow, so you can catch it live or you can catch the recording. We're going to talk about, D&D encounters will be the main topic for that one, but we'll talk about other things as well. with Tom on D20 Play.
Love it.
All right. Well, we've been doing a lot of talking, so let's hear from our listeners. We're going to go to our listener corner here, where people send us questions, whether it's via our Discord, whether it's YouTube, whether it's on social media, whether it's to our email address, which is masteringdnd@gmail.com, or if you ask us in real life or wherever else you interact with us. We're going to start with a question from DMWADJ via YouTube. Encounters is a fun program and expensive to produce, so I can only see Wizards of the Coast and to a lesser extent Paizo, who appears to be cutting back due to the Diamond bankruptcy, being able to do that, which is a win for Wizards in terms of introducing more people to their game. This isn't bad for the hobby as a whole. More exposure to the hobby lifts all boats, but it's less direct a lift for those not in the ocean liner that is D&D. So, Teos and Shawn, how could publishers from small publishing, thinking sizes like MCDM, Free League, Necrotic Gnome, Arcane Library, and the like, pull off something like this? Maybe a consortium where they all take a pack of minis and maps and each create their version of a campaign that could be run with it. So, Teos, what's your take on this wonderful question?
Yeah, so I would say there is a lot you can do. And in fact, companies that aren't Wizards and Paizo have done really neat programs for a while. Catalyst Games, Pelgrane Press with 13th Age did something really interesting. The hard part is understanding the program you are doing such that you can stick to it. It's not really even about the cost. There are a lot of lightweight ways to get into gaming stores around the country, around the world, but you have to be purposeful, sustainable, and insight driven. So small companies should look to what they want to attain with the limited resource they have and work toward that purpose and that purpose only. And if you get, lost, well, that's your mistake, right? I'm thinking of, for example, Free League had a set of forums, and I joined them and joined the group that I forget what it was called. And then I look on the forums and nobody has posted in like 2 years that's official. And the last few posts, in fact, everybody had stopped posting, but the last posts are like, is there anybody here, from Free League? That's how it falls apart, right? Like you've got to ahead of time say, well, this is what it takes, and we're going to do that, right? So purpose, maybe it's primarily to support players and so those players can find each other, right? Maybe it's to build a community aware of what the company is saying and releasing, right? You really want them to know the latest product. Maybe it's to bolster particular kinds of stores and have those stores want to carry your product. Figure out your purpose, align with that. Sustainable. Can you devote staff to this reliably across several years? Can you devote the necessary attention to deliver on the purpose? Can you spend the money that's required to keep that program going at that level? Versus just getting excited about some wild thing, right? Even Wizards falls prey to that part too. Insight driven. Can you gather the data to learn over time and improve? Not validate for some internal whatever, for your job or whatever, but to actually know what the program is achieving for your purpose and how to adjust it over time. If you fire and forget, you can't learn. You won't know if the purpose is being met. You've got to get there and talk about it. A book, Adapt by Tim Hartford, is highly recommended. Tim Hartford talks about how organizations fail to measure what they're doing. And that's what I would lend here. Yeah.
And to add to what Teos is saying, this past weekend was Free RPG Day. So this is a version of what we're talking about. It's a lot of work still. It's a lot of expense, but there isn't a lot of measurables that go with it. So as a gaming company, you create something. You create a small adventure with some pre-made characters. You make a small box set or something, and you send it out to stores. And a lot of times the stores will sell it rather than do what they're supposed to.
Because they pay for it.
Because they do pay for it, right? So they'll give it away. They'll forget about it. And there's no way to know how did it do. You can put a code in the adventure and say, hey, scan here and go here and tell us what you think. But still, that's not a reliable way to measure what happens. And so you can say, scan here, go here, and get the next adventure in the series for free, right? You could do those sorts of things. uh, but you're still not necessarily getting the metrics that you need.
Yeah.
Just having free digital adventures and tools that game masters can grab or use at home is a pretty simple, cheap way to at least let people know what your game is. You can add to that communicating with your most hardcore game masters and fans in places where they already frequent. So it's easy to just throw something up on your website. It's hard to meet these players and game masters in the places where they live, because sometimes that's EN world, right? Sometimes it's a Discord server. Sometimes it's nowhere. Sometimes they're just out there.
Yeah.
One of the keys, though, I think, and one of the hardest things to do, but reaps the most rewards, is to educate your audience in addition to selling to them. So if you can explain why certain things might not be feasible, it can help in setting those expectations. Yes, we want to give you this and this. We can't give you everything you want in the exact medium that you want, exactly when you want it. It's impossible to do that for everyone all the time. So to show these sorts of things. Now, some people are going to use that against you. That's just the way the internet is. As soon as you give an inch, people are going to take a crowbar and they are going to try to hurt you with that information that you just gave. Yeah. But it is still worth it in the long run. If enough people become educated, that sort of misinformation or misdirected information can easily be drowned out by the truth.
Yeah.
And larger corporations have a hard time doing what I just said, because any information they give is businessy and can be used to, go after their stocks or, whatever. Right, so right. It's harder for those companies that are publicly traded to do that.
And one last thing that I would say is that we can often assume that incorrectly that whatever we know, companies know, right? Like, right. Oh yeah, you're at your local gaming store every week, and maybe every now and then you visit another, and you go to conventions. Do not assume that the people inside a gaming convention or a gaming company at all understand those things. Right? What they understand is making books, hopefully. Right. They can have very interesting, levels of knowledge. And so when you are trying to ask a company, hey, please have a presence at game stores, that's an area of knowledge that can take years to cultivate, right? And so knowing what kind of program there almost means that in an ideal world, you would be hiring for that, right? You'd be bringing someone in who could lend that expertise and focus in to deliver on that, because you don't actually know necessarily what works at stores unless you've spent a lot of time hanging out in stores, right? Like I've had the luck of visiting stores around the country and even in other countries and playing in those places and seeing what works, seeing how a game day delivers or doesn't when it comes out from a particular company, right? I enjoyed reading, and there are ways to kind of get some of these insights. I think his name is Scott Thorne, who writes on ICV2 from a gaming store. And he wrote recently on this year's Free RPG Day, today, in fact, on how it went over the weekend. And he said that it was so successful that they went through copies of Cosmic Patrol, which I believe I ran for you at Gen Con one year from Free RPG Day. Yeah. They'd had that since then, right? Sitting on their shelves. And I guess every year they put it out. And finally, the last copy of Cosmic Patrol went out. I think he said they had one thing remaining from a previous year that nobody took. He also said a lot of companies give them 3 copies. And so people are lined up outside the gaming store and they come in and almost immediately they have to tell them they're gone. And one of them was the the Masquerade offering, which was not for 5e, but actual for the White Wolf game. And he said all day long people were asking for me for this because we only get 3 copies. And so that's a issue with like the gaming stores of like, how many copies should you give? Because one store is going to say it's not enough, and another one's going to have it sitting there, and that. It takes so much knowledge. You've got to, and that's that whole thing where you've got to be purposeful and you got to spend that time to get out there and think through things like maybe in the back of every single one is how to get the free PDF that I only turn on the day of free, and I tell the stores, hey, if you want to give out a digital version, here's the URL you can share, something like that, right? So that you can, rather than turn people away and say, sorry, you didn't get that, feel bad. hey, you can get the
Yeah.
digital version this way. Here's this card or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So great question. We'll take one more real quick here. AM Rosa 10 via YouTube asks, in the news about Renegade Game Studios dropping Essence 20 for 5.5e, an indication that is the news that Renegade is dropping Essence for 5e, an indication that the industry may be at the point where they have moved past the OGL scandal and third-party publishers will feel secure to again begin focusing on making content for 5e or 5.5e. I realize that Dungeon Crawler Carl is going to be a bespoke system, but Renegade likely made that choice as modeling the book series mechanics in 5.5e would be too difficult to pull off. All right. I muddled through that question, Teos, so bring us home.
Yeah. I think this is a fun question. I think the specifics of what we're being posed here have a very simple explanation, which is that Renegade has been working with Hasbro on these properties, and I think not seeing any good sales, right? They said publicly that they weren't seeing great sales of the Essence 20 system. And so they're sitting there having done a lot of work and gotten little out of it. And that's not great for Hasbro, the licensee, nor is it good for Renegade. And so switching to 5e makes everybody happy and has that potential of bringing more eyes on it. And we had a great conversation in our Discord this week about should a company release a game that is just 5e because everybody knows that, or should you use your own system, and why, when, how? And those are all great questions, but we really don't know whether what we're seeing in the industry as a whole, not just this particular example, but in others, does it mean that 5e is back and the OGL is forgotten? Unlikely. We see a lot of indications that OGL impact is still there. So I don't think it's necessarily that, but I think that we're seeing, I would say, in my opinion, just an opinion, from what I see, I think that what it is our industry is bigger than ever before. And it's wider. There is more money coming in. There are more ways to buy. A lot of things are being shaped via crowdfunding. And with so many more ways to reach audiences, then we're seeing RPGs able to achieve incredible success, even while non-5e RPGs achieve success, even while 5e remains very dominant. So much so that you can think that 5e isn't dominant because you're just in this little world, right? So for example, Free RPG Day, that same article I was mentioning a second ago, was mentioning how there were many non-5e products. That's great. We still know 5e is king by a lot with all of its reach and all of its sales, right? And so I don't think any of it is indication of either forgiveness or D&D being weaker. I think it's just that the hobby has widened and there are more ways to do this. And so you'll see successes across the channels, right?
Mm. Publishers will go where publishers can make the most money. And they might not know where they can make the most money until they try different things. And there is no cost to using 5.5. Right. You can use it for free. Despite what we call the OGL crisis, fiasco, whatever you want to call it, it turned out to be a lot of smoke. And rather than there actually being a fire, the industry is much better off for it now than it was before. Some might say because of it, some might say in spite of it. But I think we are in a very, very healthy place for all involved. I think that's the short version of what Teos just said. Right. People can, there is a larger audience for RPGs that can support larger IPs that decide not to use 5th edition, as we've seen in many Kickstarters. There's also a place for anyone to use 5e and have a larger audience because of it. So I don't think it says anything when an individual group goes in one direction or the other than they're trying to maximize their profit, whether it be through a new system or through an existing system. And we will see if that changes as the course of our industry moves forward. But I think right now we're okay. We're okay in both directions.
We can see Dungeon Crawler Carl and we can see Neon Odyssey, right? And so all these things are happening simultaneously. I think the OGL is still very tangible inside of our hobby, the more aware segments of the audience. And I think what's good of it is that I think it's widely applicable to more companies, right? We've seen, for example, Paizo do some things that are similar to what Wizards was being criticized about, right? And then we've seen how vulnerable Paizo is. And all of that kind of educates the audiences that are very aware to maybe, this won't always happen, but tone down a bit or be a little more like, okay, there's more than one data point here, right? And the idea that any company, big or small, can get complicated for you as a fan, and they may not act in your interests. Sometimes the bigger they are, but sometimes just because, right? And we can't take that for granted either way, OGL or no OGL. There are still things that are going on like this because companies are companies and they need to do their corporate stuff, and that's going to cause behavior that isn't always going to be what you as a fan want.
So thank you for those questions. Keep those questions coming. And in the meantime, Teos and I will jump into our news and commentary section, starting with Wizards of the Coast Arena team is now part of a union. On Bluesky this past Tuesday, members announced that the vote went through and workers have officially elected the UWOTC-CWA United Wizards of the Coast Union within Wizards. Wizards of the Coast verified these results, and the next step will be contract bargaining. Thoughts, Teos?
Oh, man, so many, because the things that the union brought up are things that are pretty core to Hasbro and Wizards, right? It's things like how firing takes place, which we've talked about before on the show, where they just say, toys did really poorly, so everybody lay some people off, clear X amount of budget or X number of people or whatever. Like, some order goes to everybody, even though you're not toys, you're this other department. But why? For lots of reasons, right? You could have an MBA course on that. But so to have this area that's going to say, but you can't, right? That's a really interesting thing to see negotiated. Return to office is a big push at Wizards, even though their own internal studies said that it was good to work remotely. So now, and the arena team, these members are saying, hey, I was hired, told I could, work remotely. Now you're telling me to come back in. That's unfair. So what will come of that? And what does that mean for somebody who's, say, on the D&D team that was told the same thing, right? Or in some other part of Magic the Gathering or whatever. So all of this is just arena, but it could have some ramifications for how the company as a whole operates, because it'd be strange to do one thing and not another, though you certainly can. Also, one has to wonder whether maybe this could encourage some other part of Wizards or Hasbro to unionize. That's possible as well. My hope is always that the managers that are there take a look at this, hear this, and say, hey, let me make life better for you, right? Let's just handle the things you don't like and make this a better place to work. And then you don't have to even need to go down that road.
Yeah, I don't have much to add there. So we'll move on to our next bit of news, which is new and updated D&D job postings.
We've really planned our segues today, Shawn.
Perfectly. On LinkedIn, executive producer Greg Bilson shared a link to several D&D jobs. All of these jobs are currently hybrid that require 3 days per week on site. We have been updated. Some are updated, others are new. So we're looking at a senior game designer working with our design team to conceptualize and build Dungeons and Dragons product. In this role, you will help craft the future of D&D by designing and writing meaningful portions of future products, mentoring junior designers, and assisting in commissioning and managing freelance writers. The pay scale is from $112,000 to $168,000. Senior game developer for D&D, provide in-depth review and quality control of D&D products produced outside the game design team. In this role, you'll ensure that game content is consistent, functional, and fun. As necessary, you'll also work to design and write meaningful portions of D&D products. And
same salary range. And what I really love about this, Shawn, I mean, this is going to tie into what we're going to talk about next, but we have in the past covered the job that, maybe I'll just go ahead and read that one, right? TRPG publishing lead for D&D. This is a refresh of a previous posting we talked about. You'll be the primary creative owner and day-to-day point of contact for partners. You'll also help build and run our 2P, 3P publishing pipeline, translating product architect briefs into clear partner direction, driving schedules and gates, and ensuring we deliver on time, on budget, and at D&D quality. This is 150 grand to 235,000, which has gone up 18K at the low end and 8K at the high end from last time. And what these two jobs do is they kind of dovetail together to say, hey, we're going to work with third-party groups where they have made a thing. Ghostfire has made a thing. We say, yeah, we'd love to have that on our site. Or second party where we're going to say, let's have you do this for us. And now you've got a senior game developer that's going to back that up. You're actually allocating a team member to oversee that work, which is what you need. Otherwise, you're really increasing the work for everybody. So I'm really glad to see this 1-2 connection here. And I hope they land someone very good for this, because this could be really good for the team if they can find a way to work effectively with these folks.
In my experiences, not just with Wizards of the Coast, and not even just with Ghostfire, but with the industry in general, these are the jobs that are the toughest to do. They take the most creativity and understanding of the game, and they are often the biggest bottlenecks in getting projects done. Because freelancers, there are amazing freelancers out there who can do great work, but those freelancers don't know what's going on at the company. They don't know the things that are behind the scenes that may affect a project. And so these sorts of positions are the ones that are the hardest to fill, the hardest to keep, the hardest to do in the long term.
Yeah. Just imagine any property and what it takes to speak to what you've done in-house as a new hire, right? To really understand, well, here's what we do in D&D, how we operate, what we've done before, what you can learn from. That is really interesting. And we can look at examples, for example, when Baldur's Gate 3 was being created and all the work that went into, especially Mike Merles, but other folks on the team as well, working with Larian to say, here's Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. Here's what to learn from it. Here's what we're looking for. Here's the D&D way of doing things. It takes some really great, knowledge and ways of working with the partners to do that.
Yep. We also have Business Operations and Project Manager, which is a contract position to provide support across our D&D team, coordinating communication and decision-making, driving strategic projects forward, and stepping in on emergent issues when needed. This is a 5-month contract for $50 to $65 an hour.
Great. And we have a senior manager, commercial strategy, North America. This role connects franchise priorities to how D&D shows up in market. You'll own channel and account strategy across mass, specialty hobby, and e-commerce accounts, and work closely with franchise sales, finance, marketing, and consumer insights to turn plans into results. $120,500 to $108,700 salary.
We have a principal data analyst for D&D, where you are going to modernize our forecasting capability and help lead demand planning for the brand transitioning from trend and judgment-based methods to a bottom-up approach that improves in-year accuracy and decision-making for $160,000 to $240,000 per year.
Senior world building art director at Wizards of the Coast, lead in-house and external illustrators and crafting concept art assets, commissioning key artwork, and so on. That's $125,300 to $187,900. And then a lead software development engineer for D&D Beyond just talks about leading development for the VTT. So it's a heavy VTT emphasis, and that's $144,000 to $216,100.
Yeah. What does this say in general? D&D is growing. D&D is growing, and there is a market out there for it, and these positions will hopefully fill the needs of the fans and the audience that is waiting for more and more and more and more content.
And we see a lot of strategy behind these hires, right? This is like, we need to understand where the money's going, what's happening, what is taking place. We want to bolster the VTT, right? Of all the things you may want for D&D Beyond, the VTT is getting this higher, right? And we see that this 2P, 3P push. And so those are very interesting areas where D&D is choosing to grow.
Yep. We have a new announcement about the Dungeon Masters actual play because they are going to do a season 2. A new trailer and blog post on D&D Beyond announced the new season, which returns with the same D&D or same DM and the same cast. This actual play will support the next major release of Arcana Unleashed. It says our heroes, magical agents of the Order of the Nine Quill, are hurled into the lethal expanse of the Anorak Desert, a shattered wasteland still radiating the catastrophic magic of Netherill's fall. A fragile, shimmering barrier is all that stands between Faerun and the arcane horrors buried beneath the dunes, and this safeguard is failing. What else does it say, Teos?
Well, Shawn, if that wasn't enough, our adventurer's journey is anything but quiet. On one hand, they must contend with the fanatical bringers of the cosmic dawn, who seek to tear the barrier down in pursuit of their own vision. On the other, the red wizards of Thay, who maneuver in the shadows, hungry to seize the arcane power trapped behind the barrier's walls. Even the desert itself seems intent on killing them. And Variety.com had an article which pretty much just kind of has the same info with one little addition, which is they add to the characters what the subclasses are, which actually reveals which subclasses are in the book, at least as a minimum set of 4. And so the party goes by the name of the Misfits. We have Sailor, an Aasimar monk, warrior of mystic arts, played by Neil. Princess Hobnip, a Goliath fighter, arcane archer subclass, played by Devra. Cadmus Pennypetal, good name, a human wizard transmuter, played by Christian. Saphira Horias, a high elf warlock vestige, played by Mayana. So we get to see warrior mystic arts, arcane archer, transmuter, vestige. We can expect those to be in that new book, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. I thought Dungeon Masters was actually pretty good. I did watch all of it. It didn't do the things that I would have had. We talk about purpose. Like my purpose would have been bringing new people. I think their purpose was entertainment, right? And make D&D fun. I thought they did that really well. It's very fun to watch. They're pretty short episodes, reasonably easy to take in. And at least the pattern we saw before, which we'll have to see whether it holds, is sort of like start way ahead of the book, giving you that sort of theme and interest maybe in what's going on there. Pulling things that really are from the book itself. And so you're getting a real showcase of the book, which ties into encounters and stuff like that. And then they had a special extra episodes after that to sort of pad until the next season lasts. Solid strategy overall, I think.
Good. Speaking of strategy, the pre-order is up for Vampire the Masquerade Bound by Blood. And you may say, Shawn, why are you talking about Vampire the Masquerade? I thought this was a D&D theme show.
Yeah, imagine me saying that right now.
Yeah. So this is a collaboration between D&D and White Wolf, publishers of Vampire the Masquerade, with Ghostfire Gaming working as the designers and developers of this product. So this collaboration between D&D, Ghostfire Gaming, and White Wolf is available for pre-order. It is a digital-only product at this point for $30. What do you get for your $30 on D&D Beyond here? Well, you get to take your place among the kindred, define your bloodline with one of 6 clan subclasses, and explore deep player options forged in darkness. Descend into One Last Goodbye, a level 4 adventure of historical horror.
Very cool. So
the product.
Right, we have a.
I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this, Teos, because I was involved. I was involved in the early design.
I was going to ask because I was thinking, it takes a while to make products, and you were working with Ghostfire at this era. Okay, take it away. Tell us what's in there.
The first thing you get is a complete class, which is the Kindred, which is the World of Darkness version of the vampire. So it's a full 1 to 20 vampire class, except it's powered by blood points, disciplines, and the beast that is the hunger inside you.
I know some people like that, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the question was, well, what do we do with the clans? Because they are, an important part of a vampire. And so what we did was we did them as subclasses. So you can play a Bruja, a Grangle, a Lasombra, a Nosferatu, a Toreador, or a Ventru, each with its own Bane, as well as signature gifts that are its subclass features. On top of all that, we will be seeing a Dark Ages adventure for level 4 characters. It is called One Last Goodbye, and it's a 4-night adventure of grief, suspicion, and the climactic clash of blood and fury. The Dark Ages, if you're not aware, is sort of the medieval version of the World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade setting. So that fit better into a D&D themed setting as opposed to a more 19th, 20th century look at the game. You also get new backgrounds, new feats, and forbidden gear. So 5 kindred adjacent backgrounds, 25 plus origin and kindred feats, plus kindred vitae and weapons of wood and silver. And people are like, well, they're such different games. How do you put them together? Well, we'll give you some mechanics that will help you in that transition. You will have rules for masquerade level and rules for narrated feeding to bring the dread and tension of the World of Darkness to your 5th edition 5.5e table. If you pre-order, you also get 2 D&D Beyond character sheet backdrops. Whew. Yes,
that's a lot.
It is a great project. Brian Steele, who has worked, he is the hugest Vampire World of Darkness fan out there, plus a great 5th edition developer, plus a great game developer in general. And so we got the right person in the position to do most of the design on this.
Love it. Which is what we were talking about earlier, right? It's like our whole show just ties together.
I think people are going to absolutely love this. I think fans of both games are going to say, yes, this is the game that I want to play with these rules if I can't play with those. So there you go.
Okay, love it. Yeah, and on the White Wolf site, ex-D&D lead Jess Lanzillo shared their excitement for the project, saying, Vampire and the Wider World of Darkness are just so compelling, and they deserve to be experienced by everyone who might be drawn in the way so many of us have been over the years. We can't wait to share more soon. And also clarified that the Gen Con announcement they had made about something big coming was not this, as good as it is. There is another cool White Wolf thing that's coming along the way that's specific for the Vampire the Masquerade rules. So yeah, very cool to see. I like this kind of partnership. It ties into all these things we were just talking about, and an example of it being done well. So hopefully a roadmap others can follow, right?
Mm-hmm. Over the weekend was also Origins, and we got the Origins Award winners
a week ago, right?
Yeah, it was the last weekend, not this past weekend.
Making sure I haven't time traveled as possible.
Well, I was beginning to wonder too. So at the Origins Game Fair, the 2025 winners were announced.
6, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, do they announce it for last year or this year? 2026 winners. So winners for this year's Origins include Role-Playing Game of the Year, Land of Eam by Exalted Funeral. And the role-playing game supplement of the year was Call of Cthulhu, The Sutra of Pale Leaves, Twin Suns Rising by Chaosium. You can get a list of all those winners at icv2.com.
I thought that was a real interesting choice to go with Land of Eam. There are a lot of strong contenders, right? Daggerheart would have been, I think, what a lot of people might have expected to see chosen. I was just looking through Land of Eam at my local gaming store not too long ago. So yeah, cool. Neat to see.
Mm-hmm. And what's our creator corner this week, Teos?
Ooh, well, we can start with Forgotten Odysseys. You don't want to forget that. Forgotten Odysseys comes from friend of the show and ex-D&D Beyond founder and lead, Adam Bradford, who has launched this new project. Forgotten Odysseys is described as a sword and sandals rules light art-heavy RPG based on the Mork Borg system about surviving the trip home from the Trojan War in mythic Greece, and has all of those cool Greek-inspired trappings you may have loved from mythology. That kind of feel and tone is throughout the project, and you can see it if you go to the Kickstarter page, you see all the cool art and page previews, and you know that this is drenched in that. It's a standalone product, so you don't need to buy Morkborg. It uses that license, but it has everything you need in itself. And just $40 gets you a hardcover and PDF with other options available as well. And you have until July 23rd to back Forgotten Odysseys. Adam's amazing. We always love talking to him, and just really good person. So a project to definitely check out on Kickstarter.
For sure. And we will have more in our Creator Corner next week. So thank you for hanging in for this segment of our show, and hang in there a little longer, and you can hear us talk about the best of Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Dun, dun, dun.